For 300 years, the Romanovs had ruled Russia as Tsars, loved, feared, revered, respected. But all too often, those that fly the highest fall furthest. World War I had brought Russia to its knees, which fueled the fires of revolution, and this in turn eventually resulted in the overthrow of Tsar Nicholas II, and in 1917, on the 15th of March, he abdicated and wrote, "For the sake of Russia, I decided to take this step. All around me I see treason, cowardice, and deceit." Following this, the family found themselves locked up in their own home at the Alexander Palace by the Russian Provisional Government. Here we see pictures of Nicholas and his family performing manual duties in the garden, and this picture of the former Tsar shoveling snow away from the footpaths. The family's situation at the Winter Palace was house arrest rather than imprisonment, but it was a far cry from their previous life of grand opulence. The leaders of the new provisional government were nervous of having the former Tsar so close to the capital, and the simplest solution was to send the family abroad. And the obvious choice would be Great Britain, as King George V was Nicholas's first cousin. Political asylum for the family was granted by the British government, but worsening conditions for the British people and fears that revolution might come to the British Isles led George to think that the presence of the Russian royals would be seen as inappropriate, so the offer was withdrawn. So the family continued their plight under house arrest. Meanwhile, Russia was still at war with Germany, and Germany now had a secret weapon, the banned radical Vladimir Lenin, whom they now sent back to Russia on a sealed train. The Germans knew that if they helped Lenin take power, he would take Russia out of the war, enabling Germany to concentrate on the Western Front. Lenin arrived at Finland Station, Petrograd, on the 3rd of April 1917, and his call to the people to join the revolution and his Bolsheviks was popular. He knew how to play it by chanting peace and land for the people and telling the 200,000 soldiers that were based in Petrograd that if they support the Bolsheviks, the war with Germany would end and they would never need go back to fight on the front. So now the new provisional government had a problem on its hands. First of all, Lenin and the Bolsheviks, and what to do with the Imperial family. Kerensky, who had become leader of the new provisional government, was a moderate revolutionary and somewhat felt responsible for the family's safety, and he knew that Lenin would be after them, so he arranged for the Imperial family to leave for Tobolsk in Siberia. On August the 14th, the family, along with 24 members of their household, started their mammoth journey to the other side of Russia. 4 days by train and 2 days on a paddle steamer, and finally arriving at Tobolsk on the 20th of August. The governor's house, which had now been renamed Freedom House, is where the Romanov family were to be prisoners. And this time, there were no wonderful views, no spectacular gardens, and a real sense of being locked up, with high fencing put up all around the building. Revolution was much in the air, and on November the 7th, the Winter Palace, the headquarters of the National Provisional Government, headed by Kerensky, was attacked by Lenin's Bolsheviks, resulting in the collapse of the provisional government. Kerensky fled Petrograd, never to return. Meanwhile, Lenin was now effectively ruler of all Russia, and he immediately negotiated peace with Germany. The country had become divided, a civil war was forming, with the anti-Bolsheviks, the White Army in the south, and counteracting that, the Red Army of the Bolsheviks. The family had now spent more than 6 months as prisoners in Tobolsk, and new harsher guards had taken over. In April 1918, the Bolshevik High Command, now established in the Kremlin in Moscow, issued new orders. The Romanovs were told to get ready to leave, but not where they were going. Under guard, Nicholas and his family were sent on another exhaustive journey, and whilst en route, the train was hijacked by hardened revolutionaries, and their captors took them to the town of Ekaterinburg in the Urals, and were put into a former merchant's house named Ipatiev. This house was later renamed the House of Special Purpose. Lenin faced enemies on all sides. The White Army was gaining ground and was fast heading towards Ekaterinburg in its quest to free the Romanovs, and the German Kaiser was voicing his concerns over the plight of his relatives. Alexandra was his cousin. An order was given to Yakov Yurovsky, the warden in charge of the Romanovs in captivity, and that was to eliminate the whole family. At 1:30 a.m. on July the 17th, the family was woken up by Yurovsky and told to prepare to move once again. They were led into a small basement room. There, the 11 prisoners, the family and the small retinue, were suddenly confronted by 11 armed men and gunned down. 20 minutes of pure terror with dozens of shots being fired at point-blank range. Nicholas II was instantly killed, along with his wife Alexandra. Some of the girls were bayoneted, as jewelry sewn into their bodices protected them from the bullets. The bodies were then put into a truck and taken into the forest, where they were covered in acid and buried. For half a century, the remains of the Romanovs lay hidden, but in 1979 they were discovered. And on the 17th of July 1988, exactly 80 years after their execution by the Bolshevik revolutionaries, the last Imperial Tsar of Russia, Nicholas II, and his family were finally laid to rest in St. Petersburg. Please support my channel by subscribing. Thank you for watching.